Some people are like bottomless pits. No matter how much you give them, they'll always want more. And the more you try to please them, the emptier you feel. Maybe you've already noticed it, but haven't wanted to admit it. Some relationships aren't meant to build you up. They're there to drain you. And if you don't do something about it, you'll end up paying a steep price. Your peace of mind, your health, your time. The uncomfortable truth is, you can't change a toxic person, but you can learn how not to get pulled into their chaos. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you 9 smart, firm, and effective ways to deal with people who only bring storms into your life. I promise you, the last of these lessons won't just open your eyes. It might just change the way you relate to others for good. I'm Gabriel. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. Stick around until the end, because today you just might take back something no one has the right to steal from you: your peace. Let me ask you something. How many times have you tolerated attitudes, comments, or manipulation just because someone told you that's just how family is, that's how friends are, or worse, because you thought you were too old to confront anyone? I'm asking you straight up because so many people reach this stage of life carrying years, sometimes decades, of relationships that steal their peace. Deep down, they know it, but they keep letting those people in, letting them comment, demand, criticize, without realizing that every time they give in, they lose a little more of their inner freedom. Let's go straight to that first essential point: recognizing, without guilt, who's draining your peace. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met a man named George who was nearing 70. He had raised his kids on his own, worked tirelessly, always putting others' needs first. But every time he talked about his family relationships, there was a look in his eyes. One that didn't come from age, but from emotional exhaustion. He said to me, "Gabriel, I don't know when my life started revolving around doing what others expect of me. If I don't lend them money, if I'm not always available, they get upset. But when I need something, they're all too busy." George thought that putting up with it was the right thing to do, that giving in meant being a good father, a good brother, a good friend. But behind that false idea of kindness was nothing more than an invisible chain that had him trapped. And that's where the first principle comes in, one no one teaches us soon enough. Your peace is your responsibility, and anyone who drains it, even if it's your child, your sibling, or your partner, deserves to be seen clearly without the emotional fog that weakens you. If you don't acknowledge it, you'll live in a cage whose keys have always been in your pocket. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor and philosopher, ruled over millions, yet he understood that true leadership begins with the self. He once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." I'd add this: it also becomes dyed with the color of the people you let in. And you know what's even worse? That kind of toxicity doesn't always come with yelling or direct insults. Sometimes it shows up in the form of victimhood, emotional blackmail, those guilt-loaded phrases, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" And you, for years, have believed the right thing to do is to stay quiet, give in, keep handing over whatever they ask. But that's the trap. The right thing isn't always the most painful sacrifice. Sometimes the right thing is to look them in the eye and say, "Enough." Faith also speaks to this. Christ didn't allow manipulation to break him. He knew when to stay silent and when to speak with authority, without justifying every step. You, who have lived long enough to know not everyone has good intentions, can also learn to discern who deserves your energy and who only drains it. The first thing you need to accept, without guilt or fear, is that you are not responsible for carrying the weight of everyone else, that there are people you can love and still keep at a distance, that whoever steals your peace, even if they share your blood, has no right to live rent-free in your mind or your heart. So today, I invite you to pause and take a good look. Who are the people that leave you feeling empty and mentally exhausted when they walk away? Don't fool yourself by saying, "It's normal." It's not, and you're not obligated to endure it. Because the first step to getting your serenity back is to honestly see who's draining it and to stop making excuses for them. From here, everything starts to change, and if you think this is intense, just wait for what's coming next. Now that we've opened our eyes and recognized, without guilt, the people who drain our peace, it's time to face another silent enemy. One that doesn't always come from the outside, but often grows within us. We've arrived at the second key point of this video, remembering that you decide how you react. Here's the trap that catches so many: they believe their discomfort depends on how others behave. If someone hurts them, they respond with pain. If someone disrespects them, they carry that disrespect like a burden, and without realizing it, they've handed over their mood, their peace, even their faith to people who, let's be honest, don't even deserve that kind of power. This isn't just an emotional problem, it's a loss of personal sovereignty. And let me say it clearly, there is no one, absolutely no one, who can force you to react in a way you don't choose. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Epictetus said, "We are not disturbed by what happens to us, but by our thoughts about what happens." You could be standing face to face with the most difficult person, full of criticism, demands, provocations. But your response, that tiny pause between stimulus and reaction, is the space where your freedom lives. And yet how many people live as if that pause doesn't exist? As if every hurtful comment were a command, and the only possible answer is to lash out, shut down, or drown in resentment. I want you to think about this. Maybe, after years of dealing with ungrateful children, opportunistic friends, or relatives who only show up when they need something, you've convinced yourself that your peace depends on them changing. That only when they stop being who they are, you'll finally be at ease. But that wait is endless. It's like standing in the middle of a storm, hoping the wind and rain will ask your permission to calm down. The storm won't change for you, but you can learn how to walk through it without getting soaked. This is where not just philosophy, but faith comes into play. Christ was insulted, betrayed, beaten, and still chose not to return hate for hate. Why? Because he knew his mission, his essence, didn't depend on others' offenses. And we, though we may be far from that level of greatness, also have the ability to choose. Will I let someone else's bitterness enter my home, my mind, my soul? Or will I stay grounded in my purpose? Many will say, "Gabriel, I just don't have the patience anymore. At this point in my life, it hurts more when my family doesn't value me or takes me for granted." And I get it. But let me ask you something. What hurts more? The things they do, or the invisible chain you've placed on yourself by believing you need their approval to be at peace? Every time you react with rage, with deep sadness, with desperation toward a toxic person, you're handing over a piece of your control. And the cost isn't just emotional, it wears you down physically, mentally, and spiritually. It shows up in sleepless nights, in anxiety, in that constant feeling that something's missing. Even worse, it makes aging feel not like a time of freedom and wisdom, but like a battlefield where you're always on the defensive. But the power has always been yours, not to change others, but to decide how you'll move through life alongside them. Do you see it? The day you decide that your response belongs to you, that's the day you take back something no one can ever steal: your inner calm. So next time someone provokes you, don't rush to react. Breathe. Pause. Remember who you are. The storm may still rage outside, but you can learn to walk through it dry. So far, we've recognized who's stealing our peace and understood that how we react is always in our hands. But all of that means nothing if we don't take the next step, the one that truly breaks the toxic cycle at its root. We've reached the third point of this video, and this is where everything starts to shift. Don't explain, don't justify, just act. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you caught yourself replaying an argument in your head, rehearsing what you should have said, trying to justify your decisions to someone who didn't even care enough to listen? We've been taught that we owe explanations, that we have to prove why we set boundaries, why we say no, why we're no longer available to put up with mistreatment. And in trying to explain ourselves, we fall right back into the trap. We hand over control again, as if we needed permission to take care of ourselves. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a powerful remedy. Seneca said that the wise don't need the crowd's approval. The wise act according to principle, not public opinion. So what does that mean for you, right here and now? It means you don't have to justify walking away from a conversation that only brings poison. You don't need to write a whole essay to explain why you're not lending money again to someone who doesn't respect your effort. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing to protect your peace. You just act calmly and firmly. Let me give you a clear example. Imagine you're standing in front of a door. On the other side is someone demanding, accusing, throwing hurtful words. And you know that opening that door will only bring more noise, more drain. But there you are, with your hand on the doorknob, wondering if you should open it, wondering if you should explain why you need space this time. The Stoic strategy is simple. Don't open the door. You don't need to explain your silence, your decision. You close it, and you walk away. Not to ignore, but to protect what you're no longer willing to hand over: your peace, your dignity, your time. I want you to put this into practice today. Next time someone demands unnecessary explanations from you, notice that urge to justify yourself and let it go. Act with clarity. Say no, set the boundary, and move forward without offering more explanation than necessary. It'll be hard at first because we're used to pleasing, to clarifying. But I promise you this, every time you choose to act without justifying, you're training your inner strength. And the day comes when you no longer feel that need. That's the day you've reclaimed something many people lose with age: sovereignty over your own life. If these reflections are resonating with you so far, I invite you to subscribe and hit that like button. That's how I can keep bringing you content that truly challenges, awakens, and gives you back the reins. Let me know in the comments what country you're listening from, and write the phrase, "My peace is non-negotiable." Because we still have powerful lessons ahead, and the last one just might change the way you see your relationships for good. Let's keep going. Now that you've understood the power of acting without the need to justify yourself, there's something else we need to face. A silent obstacle that, if you don't catch it, can quietly undo all the progress you've made. We've reached the fourth point of this video, and here I want to talk to you about the most powerful and quiet weapon you can have: using silence as your greatest strength. And I'm not talking about the kind of silence that avoids conflict just to keep the peace. That's not silence, that's submission. I'm talking about conscious, intentional silence, the kind that comes from someone who knows they don't need to respond to every provocation or explain every misunderstanding. Because one of the most common mistakes, especially at this stage of life, is thinking you need to have the last word to prove your point, to show you won't be pushed around. But that need doesn't empower you, it traps you. It drags you down to the same level as the person attacking you, draining your energy in battles that aren't worth fighting. What many don't realize is that every time they respond to unfair criticism, a venomous remark, or a guilt-laced reproach, they're feeding the cycle. They do it because they feel that staying silent means losing, that if they don't reply, the other person wins. But silence, when chosen from strength, not resignation, is an act of complete self-mastery. Marcus Aurelius said that other people's opinions can't disturb your soul unless you allow them to. And what is silence, if not the purest expression of that controlled indifference? What makes this mistake so destructive is that it implants the belief that you always have to defend yourself, as if, at your age, simply being who you are isn't enough, as if your dignity depended on convincing someone else. And every time you fall into that trap, you give up your inner peace and sink into quicksand. You end up feeling drained, anxious, resentful. And even worse, you tie your happiness to something as fragile as another person's opinion or reaction. Isn't that the same as handing over the keys to your peace to anyone who wants to break it? Let me give you an example you've probably lived. You're at a family gathering. Someone throws a passive-aggressive comment your way, questioning your choices, your beliefs, your lifestyle. You feel that sting, that urge to reply, to explain why they're wrong. But what happens if you choose not to react? Not because you have nothing to say, but because you don't need to play that game. You stand up, change the subject, smile without giving it weight. That's the silent victory so many overlook. Because that's where you take the power back, when you understand that your peace is worth more than any argument. Well-used silence is the refuge of a strong mind. It's not about isolating yourself or refusing to communicate, it's about choosing when and with whom it's worth opening your mouth. Because not every provocation deserves a response, and not every opinion needs correcting. When you master that kind of silence, you realize the real power isn't in convincing others, it's in not letting yourself be dragged into their chaos. Many people reach this stage of life thinking they've seen it all, that there's nothing left to learn. But this is where the paths split, between those who grow old with wisdom and those who grow old with bitterness. The difference lies in who knows how to stay quiet, not out of fear, but out of conviction. And that, believe me, frees you more than any word ever could. Because at the end of the day, the only voice that should carry weight is the one that echoes inside you, not the one trying to throw you off from the outside. And if you're starting to feel the power that's already in your hands, don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will show you how to protect your space even more without feeling guilty for doing it. We've come to a crucial point in this journey of reclaiming your peace, keeping your distance without feeling guilty about it. And yes, I know what you're probably thinking, that setting boundaries is selfish, that walking away from a child, a sibling, or someone who's been part of your life forever is a betrayal of who you're supposed to be. But let me say it plainly. Staying close to someone who keeps hurting you just because you're afraid of feeling guilty is a slow form of emotional suicide. For decades, we've been taught that love bears all things, that we must endure, forgive, give second chances. And yes, there are moments when that makes sense. But there are others, and you know this, where that kind of tolerance isn't a virtue, it's submission. Where every attempt to reconnect only leads to more pain, more disrespect, more exhaustion. And still, you stay. Why? Because you've been conditioned to believe that if you walk away, you're the bad one. That cutting ties means you're failing as a parent, as a sibling, as a human being. That's a trap. And it's time to break free. Let me share something with you, something I lived with a woman named Teresa, a loyal listener from Guadalajara. She wrote to me and said she had spent more than 20 years trying to keep a relationship with her adult daughter. But every time her daughter visited, it was to criticize, manipulate, or ask for money. Teresa tried to set boundaries, but guilt would always creep in. She'd think, what if I never see her again? What if the Lord calls me and we're still estranged? That guilt ate away at her and kept her stuck in a relationship that was draining her health and her peace. One day, after listening to one of our episodes, Teresa made a decision. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, she simply stopped forcing it. She wrote her daughter a short letter saying she needed space to heal and that if her daughter ever wanted to rebuild the relationship with respect, she'd be open to talking. And then, silence. She told me she cried for weeks, that guilt hit her hard at night. But little by little, she started sleeping better. Her appetite came back. And most importantly, she felt like she was finally doing something she hadn't done in years, taking care of herself. You know what happened next? Her daughter didn't reply. She didn't call. And even though that hurt, it also revealed a truth Teresa had been avoiding. Love cannot be one-sided. If a relationship only exists at the expense of your well-being, it's not a relationship, it's a prison. What Teresa lived through is not uncommon. You might be there too, at that point where you've given everything, and still, they make you feel like it's never enough. That's why I want you to hear this with an open heart. You have the right to walk away. Not as punishment, not out of spite, but as an act of dignity. Emotional and physical distance isn't always selfish. Many times, it's the purest form of self-respect. Even Jesus, when he saw that his presence wasn't welcome, chose to walk away. He didn't stay to convince anyone. He didn't beg for attention. He knew that where there is no respect, there is no truth. You can learn to do the same. They might call you cold. They might try to make you feel guilty. But remember this: there is no crime in protecting your peace. The real crime is living your entire life surrounded by people who drain you, just because you're afraid of what they'll think if you take a step back. That's not love. That's emotional dependency disguised as loyalty. You have one life, and every day spent with people who exhaust you is a day stolen from your own well-being. Don't wait until you're sick or completely depleted to realize that taking care of yourself is your most sacred duty. If someone truly values you, they'll respect your limits. And if they don't, that just confirms what you may have already suspected, that being close wasn't about love. It was about convenience. So today, if you need to create distance from someone, do it. Don't ask for permission. Don't over-explain. Don't torment yourself. Sometimes, distance doesn't break the relationship. It purifies it. And in that space you reclaim, the things that truly belong in your life can finally begin to grow. If you've made it this far, you already know you don't need to respond to every provocation, or explain yourself, or exhaust your energy justifying your choices. You've seen that conscious silence is a powerful weapon. But it would be a mistake to think that setting boundaries and staying quiet is enough. There's something deeper, something few people are willing to face, because it's uncomfortable, because it forces you to confront a hard truth. Life doesn't stop. And if you don't take the reins, it'll push you somewhere you never meant to go. We've reached the 6th point of this video, and now we're going to talk about one of the toughest but most necessary decisions you'll ever make. Stop expecting gratitude or recognition. Think back for a moment. How many times have you given without limits, supported others, shown up time and again, all while secretly hoping, maybe silently, maybe not, that one day they'd acknowledge it, that they'd say thank you, give something back, even just a little? And then life keeps moving, the years pile up, and that gratitude never comes. The frustration builds. And it doesn't just sour your days, it turns you into a prisoner of an expectation that should never have been there in the first place. Let me ask you to try something. Picture yourself at the end of your life, sitting down, looking back at everything. What do you see? Do you see acts of love and service that were appreciated? Or do you see all the times you gave more than you had, waiting for a thank you that never came? Do you see people who drifted away without even looking back, while you held on to the bitterness? It's a painful image, I know. But even more painful is living trapped in that pattern and never breaking free. The mistake is thinking that your worth and happiness depend on how others treat you. That if your kids show gratitude, if your friends recognize your efforts, then everything you sacrificed will have been worth it. But here's the problem. That recognition doesn't always come. Not because you're not enough, but because people often don't know how, or don't want, to value what you give. And every day you spend waiting for them to change is a day you lose the chance to change yourself. Marcus Aurelius said that those who act according to their nature don't need an audience. And that's the key. You don't give to get. You don't help to be applauded. You don't live for others to validate you. You give because it's true to who you are. Because if you give only to receive something back, you're not acting from strength, you're acting from lack. And that lack will chain you. The result of living in constant expectation of gratitude is clear: bitterness, resentment, and a nagging emptiness that never goes away. And you know what's worse? At this stage of life, you can't afford to waste another year hoping the world works the way it should. The world isn't always fair. People don't always say thank you. So what will you do? Keep draining yourself, letting that anger poison the time you have left? The only way out is to let go of that expectation. Do what you do because you choose to, without needing applause. Live with the purpose of being at peace with yourself, not to collect praise that never truly satisfies. Because when you stop waiting for gratitude, that's when real freedom begins. You no longer need others to see your effort, you see it, and that's enough. If this idea makes you uncomfortable, stay with me, because what comes next will show you how to build a life so solid that neither indifference nor ingratitude can touch you. That's where true transformation begins. If you've stayed with me this far, you already know you can't keep waiting for recognition, and you can't let someone else's indifference define your worth. You've seen that your peace doesn't come from being thanked. It comes from living according to your principles. But if all of this stays in your thoughts and never makes it to your actions, if you understand it but don't live it, you'll end up right back where you started, stuck in the noise of others, in empty relationships, in your own dissatisfaction. That's why we've come to the seventh point, the most raw and maybe the most decisive one yet. Forgive, but don't allow. This is where many people stumble because they confuse forgiveness with weakness, with leaving the door open again and again for people who have already shown they don't know how to treat you well. You're told to forgive, and yes, that's true. Not for them, but for you. So you don't have to carry the bitterness, so you don't keep dragging around the weight of what they did. But forgiveness is not the same as permission. It's not an excuse for harmful behavior, and it's not a free pass for the same story to repeat itself. I know it hurts. It hurts to look straight at the people who took advantage of your kindness, who used your love for their own gain, and to accept that they're not going to change. It hurts to realize that a child, a friend, a relative, no matter how much you gave them, may never give you back what you hoped for. But the deeper pain comes when you keep letting them back in, thinking that forgiveness means you also have to keep putting up with it. That mistake comes with a high price. Your peace, your self-worth, your time you can't get back. Forgiveness is a private act. It's about letting go of the rage, releasing the resentment that's been eating away at you. But after forgiveness comes the most important decision of all: setting boundaries. No excuses, no half measures. You can't let the same patterns of abuse, manipulation, or ingratitude continue just because you're afraid of being alone, afraid of judgment, or because that's just how family is. That's the story that keeps so many trapped in emotional dependency, not realizing they're running out of time to waste. Seneca said that life is long enough if you know how to live it, and part of living it well is learning to close doors, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because every time you allow the unacceptable, you betray yourself. It doesn't matter if the other person gets it, if they change, if they ever understand. What matters is that you have the strength to protect your space, your mind, your soul. Today I'm asking you to look at your life with absolute honesty. Ask yourself how many times you've confused forgiveness with continuing to tolerate the intolerable. How many times have you reopened the same door to the same problem, hoping it'll be different this time? And ask yourself one more thing. How much more are you willing to pay for not making that decision? Because real transformation doesn't come from understanding ideas. It comes from living them. No one else is going to set those boundaries for you. No one else is going to guard your peace if you're not the first one to do it. So today, let this chain break. Forgive to free yourself, but don't allow so you don't lose yourself. The difference between staying trapped and living in peace comes down to that choice. Don't look for excuses, don't put it off. Because this moment, right here, right now, is all you've got, and life doesn't wait. By now, we've torn down every excuse. You can no longer wait for someone else's gratitude to save you, nor can you keep giving unlimited access to those who've hurt you. But there's still one simple, direct, and powerful action you need to master, and without it, everything we've talked about will remain just empty words. We've reached the 8th point of this video, learning to say no without feeling selfish. Look around you. How many times have you said yes when deep down you wanted to say no? How often have you agreed to favors, visits, commitments, even criticism, just to avoid conflict, just to avoid being seen as ungrateful or selfish? That's a trap especially familiar to those who've spent a lifetime serving others, giving in, taking on responsibilities that weren't theirs. And over time, that trap becomes a habit, a kind of self-imposed sentence where your time, your energy, your well-being always come last. Saying no is the simplest act, and at the same time, one of the hardest, not because of the word itself, but because of the weight we attach to it. We think that by saying no, we're letting people down, breaking bonds, being selfish. But here's the truth. With no sugarcoating, every yes you say out of obligation is a silent betrayal of yourself. Every time you give in out of fear, you're handing over a piece of your life to someone else. And the worst part is, those people rarely stop to ask what it's costing you. What I want you to do today, not tomorrow, not next time, is pause before you respond. When someone asks you for something, when you feel the pressure to please, stop. Ask yourself, do I truly want to do this? Can I do it without resentment, without feeling drained? If the answer is no, then say it. Clearly, calmly, without excuses or justifications. I can't. I don't want to. This isn't the right time. Simple words, but powerful. But it's not just about saying no once. The real challenge is standing by it. Because the guilt trips will come, the long faces, the passive-aggressive comments, the manipulation disguised as concern. And this is where your mindset has to be solid. You need to understand something. Your responsibility is not to carry other people's expectations. Your responsibility is to yourself, to the life you have left, to the peace you've decided to protect. This isn't about being cold or shutting yourself off from the world. It's about realizing that no one else has the right to decide what you give, what you endure, or how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice. Many people reach this stage of life thinking it's too late to change, that they're too deep into old habits to start saying no now. But let me be clear. Every day you keep accepting the unacceptable is a day you won't get back. And there's no greater selfishness than neglecting yourself to please people who don't care about your well-being. So when this video ends today, I want you to make one very specific promise to yourself. The next time someone crosses a line, asks for something you don't want to give, or expects more than you're willing to offer, practice saying no. Not a soft maybe, not a delayed excuse, just no. With the conviction of someone who knows they're protecting their space, their time, their energy, because no one else is going to do it for you. And if you think this has been intense so far, wait for the final reflection, because what comes next might just redefine the way you see your relationships and your entire life. This is where it all comes together. Stay with me. You've come a long way. You've understood that you don't need to justify yourself, that you can stay silent without surrendering, that you can set boundaries, say no, and stop waiting for gratitude that may never come. But there's still something that can undo all that inner work if you're not careful. A more subtle, more deceptive poison, one that can quietly dismantle everything you've built. This is the 9th and final point of the video, and it's no accident that we've saved it for last. Today, we're going to talk about a truth few are willing to face. Forgive, but do not allow. Look around you. At this stage in life, it's all too easy to fall into the trap of elegant excuses. It's too late to change. This is just how I am. My children wouldn't understand. At my age, what's the point of fighting for something different? These phrases sound reasonable. They're the voice of habit, of exhaustion, of fear, disguised as resignation. And every time you repeat them, you give yourself a convenient reason to stay still. But let me be brutally honest with you. Those phrases aren't wisdom, they're chains. And as long as you keep saying them, you'll remain tied to a life that isn't the one you truly deserve. The problem isn't your age. It's not the years you've spent carrying toxic relationships or the deeply rooted habits. The problem is that you've told yourself the same story for so long, you've started to believe it. You've convinced yourself that putting up with things, pleasing others, giving in, is easier than changing. And in a way, it is. But easy doesn't mean right. Easy doesn't mean worthy. You have to understand this. Every day, you postpone the decision to act, to end the relationship that's hurting you, to stop justifying yourself, is one less day you have to live in peace. And no excuse holds up when the countdown is real. Time doesn't wait. And the people who don't respect your boundaries won't either. I want you to picture something right now. Imagine continuing just as you are. Same fears, same compromises, same relationships that drain you. Imagine 10 more years, 20, going by with nothing changing. What do you see? Do you see a full, free, peaceful life? Or do you see a faded reflection, tired and wondering when you stopped being the owner of your own life? That's the image many people avoid facing because it's more comfortable to believe there's still time to fix it tomorrow. But there's no more tomorrow. There's only today. This moment, right now, is the one where you decide, enough. No more being a spectator in your own life, waiting for others to change, hoping things will get better on their own. Forgive who you need to forgive. Let go of the bitterness if it's weighing you down. But don't keep allowing the same patterns to repeat. Because real transformation begins the moment you stop giving yourself permission to delay and start acting with the determination of someone who knows that life doesn't hand out infinite chances. There's no self-deception that can survive when your inner peace is on the line. No excuse that justifies staying trapped. Everything you need is already inside you, but no one can use it for you. No one's coming to rescue you. No one's going to set those boundaries in your place. It's time to decide who you want to be in this chapter of your life. Someone who keeps allowing the unacceptable, or someone who finally takes the reins and never lets go. The choice, as always, is yours. If you've made it this far, you're not like most people. You're not someone who chooses to look the other way, make excuses, or wait for life to fix what you don't have the courage to face. You're not someone who keeps allowing the intolerable just because you're afraid of being alone or because you think it's too late to change. No. If you're hearing these words, it's because you know the only real way forward begins with a decision no one else can make for you. To stop tolerating what steals your peace and to reclaim what's rightfully yours, your serenity, your dignity, and your inner freedom. This isn't a feel-good message. It's not easy comfort. It's the raw truth, a truth that sometimes hurts, but also sets you free. This space isn't here to sugarcoat life, it's here to hold up the mirror, because only when you see yourself clearly, without masks, without excuses, does real transformation begin. And if you've listened all the way to this final moment, I know there's a spark in you that won't go out, that quiet strength that allows you to face life head-on and say, "This ends now." No one else has the right to control my reactions, my decisions, my time. Only I do. I want you to affirm that right now. Drop a comment. I want to know where you're listening from, and I want to see one simple but powerful phrase: "My peace is non-negotiable." Because that's how I'll know you didn't just listen, you've chosen to act. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. This space exists for one clear reason: to help you wake up, shake off the invisible chains, and walk with you toward a life that's stronger, calmer, and freer. I won't promise magic formulas, but I will offer you something real: honest tools and reflections to help you live each day with more clarity and purpose. So if you haven't already, subscribe. Be part of this community that refuses to settle, that has chosen to live this chapter of life, maturity, even old age, with strength and awareness, not resignation. And share this video with someone you know needs to hear these truths today. Because sometimes all it takes is one word, one decision, to change the course of a life. Don't leave just yet. I've got 2 more videos right here that go even deeper into these topics. Pick one and keep going. Because this conversation doesn't end here, it's just getting started.